I mean, how did they pronounce it before?
Welcome back to HIVEMIND Unlimited.
And welcome to the second episode of
How Did It Age?
Where we talk about movies that came out a while ago and we watch them or rewatch them and see how they've aged with modern context.
The last episode was Step Brothers.
And we took a big step down and decided that we would watch I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry.
Which is a movie I've never seen and a movie Riley was very fond of. So we had to...
it's not fond of, but I did see it in theaters.
With your
when
whole
I was
family?
I was in middle school and I went with like my friends from art class outside of school.
Oh.
Yeah, it was three of us. It was cool. But they
it was cool.
No, they liked the movie, and at the time I didn't like it just because I thought it wasn't funny.
Well, that stays true.
That rings true with time. But rewatching it, I was appalled.
Appalled is a good word to use.
Yeah.
Abhorrent.
Can you tell the people a little bit about this movie if they have not seen it?
Absolutely. I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry came out in 2007 from the Happy Madison production team, Adam Sandler's crew of misfits that brought us Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, Big Daddy. Some truly beloved comedies and good stuff. I haven't rewatched those recently, but stuff I was fond of, in the early 2000s, late 90s. Yes, I was alive. 2007, we're getting into this era here of the Happy Madison production that is a little bigger budget. The comedy starts to change. This is an $85 million movie. That's the budget for this movie.
That's crazy.
$85 million to make this piece of garbage.
Like some big picture house decided they would cut the check for $85 million for this movie, this idea.
And you know what? Unfortunately, it really paid off.
Yeah, it did well.
It was the #1 movie that weekend that it came out. It beat Hairspray, which came out that weekend, but more notably, it beat the Harry Potter movie that came out the week before. So in only the second weekend of a Harry Potter movie, it was dethroned by I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry.
Which, as we get into the plot of this movie, you'll understand why that's so appalling. If you've never heard of this movie, you'll see.
This movie stars Kevin James, Adam Sandler, Jessica Biel, Ving Rhames, Steve Buscemi. It's got Kevin James' brother, Gary Valentine, in it.
Which Kevin James' character in this movie is named Larry Valentine.
Yeah.
Which I think is hilarious that his brother's name is Gary Valentine and he's in the movie.
That is hilarious. I think the most interesting note I'd like to share with you and the audience, the producer and writer of this, Tim Shadyac. I don't know how you're going to say it. He wrote Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. He wrote Bruce Almighty.
Yeah.
Some pretty good comedies, stuff people love.
I'm sure we'll get into Ace Ventura in this series at some point,
right?
And it will. There's some modern context that makes that movie different as well. But
point being here, interesting thing here, he had this movie written since like 98 or 99. So this comes out in 2007. He's sitting on this. He really wants to make this movie, and it's in his original idea. He wanted this to star Nicolas Cage and Will Smith. Those were the two dream cast members for this before we landed on Adam Sandler and Kevin James.
I cannot explain how hard it is to imagine Nicolas Cage and Will Smith doing this movie. It is unfathomable to me that was the original idea for this movie.
And in 99, young, hot Will Smith, and like Nicolas Cage still hot in my mind, but young like Nick Cage in 99. Kind of like a rock star. Imagine those two just doing this.
I'm just thinking about some of the lines in this movie. I'm thinking about who is who. I'm thinking about who is Nicolas Cage the main guy? I feel like it's Will Smith.
Will Smith is Mr. February, obviously.
No, I think it's the other way around.
Really?
Because I think Will Smith has a sweet side that we'll get into about Kevin James's character. And Nicolas Cage would have to be the kind of like disparate, awful, misogynistic guy.
Yeah, you might be right there. Oh, golly. And obviously, this movie was met with terrible reviews. I think it has 14% on Rotten Tomatoes.
But an audience score of 69%.
True.
I will say.
Good point.
I will say that is crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising. A 37 out of 100 on Metacritic, and This is my favorite like blurb of a review is from the Wall Street Journal. An insult to gays, straight, men, women, children, African Americans, Asians, pastors, mailmen, insurance adjusters, firemen, doctors, and fans of show music. That hits it on the head, really.
Yeah, it tries to offend everyone it can.
Yeah.
That's really what this movie does.
Okay, last note before we get into the categories here. Oddly enough, this film was screened in front of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. And at the time, they didn't find it offensive. They actually said, the movie has some of the expected stereotypes, but in its own disarming way, it's a call for equality and respect.
Wow. I hate to disagree with the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation.
Yeah, I do
It just
too.
does. It feels wrong, too.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, we are two straight guys sitting here.
Correct.
So, and we're two straight guys who are alive in 2024.
Right.
And have experienced 2007 to 2024. So, really, I'm disagreeing with the 2007 version of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. I'm sure I agree with them on almost everything now.
I don't know. I don't trust organizations, especially nonprofits.
True.
They've turned out to be quite shady,
Yeah.
especially that damn Red Cross.
Totally. Yeah.
But it almost feels like Adam Sandler paid him to say that.
All I will say about that alliance is that I am not glad that movie came out.
Right. Yep. Good one, Riley.
That's what-
really good one.
GLAD is the acronym for the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, which I'm against defamation no matter what.
All right, let's talk about this movie that grossed almost $191 million.
That is crazy. I'll give a quick plot summary before we get into our categories. So this movie, Larry Valentine, which is Kevin James' character, he lost his wife a few years ago and has 2 children. And he's a fireman who works at the same firehouse as Adam Sandler's character, whose name is Chuck, and I don't know what his last name is. They're best friends, and basically, for some reason, Larry Valentine's character is having trouble with his pension and making sure that his beneficiaries are his kids.
Right.
Because his wife has passed away. It's some sort of weird, like, legal situation.
Yep.
And basically, he comes up with a solution that he needs to enter a domestic partnership, which is what people would do prior to gay marriage being legalized. They would enter a domestic partnership, get tax benefits, would be able to be beneficiaries or medical, you know, emergency contacts, stuff like that. So Larry Valentine proposes this idea to Adam Sandler's character, and Adam Sandler is like a piece of shit misogynist guy who's just like having tons of orgies all the time and stuff.
Yeah, he's like Brooklyn firefighter Hugh Hefner.
Yeah, that's basically what he is in this movie. And for some reason, every woman in this movie finds him irresistible, which I don't know.
He's Mr. February.
Yeah, they all make a big deal about him being Mr. February in the fireman calendar.
Yep, where he's holding a fireman's hose as his cock.
Yeah, he's like a celebrity in New York City for some reason.
They love him.
Yeah, they come up with this idea. They both seem to be somewhat homophobic in different ways. I feel like Kevin James is the type of homophobe in this movie where he just doesn't want his son to be gay.
Correct.
And Chuck, Adam Sandler's character, is like a homophobe in the stereotypical piece of shit New Yorker guy in the 2000s sort of way where he's saying the F slur all the time.
Yeah.
And they decide that they're going to do this to help each other out, whatever. And they have this scheme running, and then they end up being investigated by some sort of New York institution that investigates domestic partnerships to make sure that they're actually a legitimate gay couple.
And not fraudulent.
Yes. And as they do this investigation, they have to prove more and more that they are actually a gay couple. And they have a defense lawyer who's helping them out, and that's Jessica Biel. She's hot, and Adam Sandler's character is obsessed with her.
And Adam Sandler is hot in this movie. Don't forget that.
Yeah, well,
It's hard to
in the plot line, he is hot.
It's hard to suspend reality, but he's hot too. He's honestly on the same level as Jessica Biel. That's what we're being asked as the audience to believe.
Yes, we have to believe. And basically, they go through all of that. They end up going to Canada and getting married to try to legitimize the whole thing. As they continue to get investigated, they experience homophobia from their coworkers at the firehouse and other people just in the real world in New York City.
Yep.
And then it turns into a huge high-profile court case where there's paparazzi there and stuff I don't understand. There's no reason where they're going to decide if they're a real gay couple or not.
Yeah. The lead investigator on the case is Steve Buscemi.
Yes, his name is Clint Fitzer.
And he's awesome. Great actor.
Yeah, he does a good job.
He's
But
got a fanny pack.
that's basically the story here. So let's get into it. We're going to start with the positives.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, let's do it.
There was really only one choice for me, and it's very early in the movie when Larry Valentine is on the phone with an automated phone service thing trying to switch his beneficiary stuff to his kids. And it says, like, please say your name. And he's like, Larry Valentine. And it goes, you said Barry Schmalentine. And then he goes, Schmalentine? And then it goes, you said Schmalentine. And he was like, I was enunciating. And then it goes, you said I was enunciating.
And then he gets so upset that he goes, woo! And the automated voice responds, woo!
Yeah, it's like such a dumb joke that it wouldn't stand out in another comedy as being like a really funny moment. But this movie, as offensive as it is just as unfunny and poorly written.
Yeah, void of laughter.
It's like, Adam Sandler movies, you can go back to there's some big laughs in Adam Sandler movies, even if they are offensive. This one suffers more from being unfunny than from being offensive. Because you can kind of suspend, like, 2007. We're going to talk about the politics of a 2007 movie about gay people.
Right.
Of course, there's going to be some really bad dated stuff being who's involved in this movie. But the real conversation also comes around to, like, was it funny when it was being offensive? And, like, no.
No. Those Adam Sandler movies that are beloved or whatever are him just doing Adam Sandler, the whole, like, Wedding Singer. Everything is just, like, kind of him running wild inside of like a plot idea. And this one, he was like, you know what? We got $85 million. I'm going to be fucking hot.
Yeah.
I'm going to be having sex with a bunch of any woman I want.
Yeah.
It perverts the idea of what's funny of Adam Sandler to a place where, like, I can't believe it and it loses its humor.
Yeah, it does.
I have a couple lines down that stuck out to me when in the first fire scene that they go into, they have to save a morbidly obese man who can't walk, and it's not a funny scene at all. But as he is being forklifted away from the building, he's waving at Kevin James and Adam Sandler. He goes, they're my heroes, my heroes. And then he goes, ooh, heroes, I want a euro. And then they just put him in the ambulance. That was all right. The Schmalentine line for me was good. I also love the line after Kevin James saves Adam Sandler's life. They wake up in the hospital next to each other, and Adam Sandler looks at Kevin James and goes, wake up. You're just a head now. They removed your whole body. But you had so much fat in your head that scientists are in the next room reconstructing your body. It's like, that's like Sandler doing his random.
Yeah, that's like classic old Sandler. I did like that. Yeah, that was funny.
Just an absurd line.
Also, I will say just about the fact that, like, he is in the hospital after he saves Adam Sandler's life in this scene. There are so many scenes in this movie that are meant to be, like, emotional and serious.
Too many.
Like, it kind of, like, tries to equate, like, the camaraderie of the fire department.
Oh, yeah.
With gay couples.
Yeah, it's 2007, we're still kind of in that New York firemen were, like, Navy SEALs. Like, we loved them. Like, those guys got... I guess that kind of contextualizes why it's so sexy, why they're superstars. They're like, we're really putting on a pedestal these, like, New York civil servants.
Yeah, I feel that. I just think, like, it's a very, like, false analogy. The connection is not made.
Yeah.
But the scenes are meant to feel so serious and so heroic. It like, really leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Because it will jump from, like, rampant misogyny and homophobia to a scene where you are supposed to love these characters because they will do anything for each other.
Yep.
It's just so odd.
Anything for their straight brothers.
Yeah.
Other funny lines here when Steve Buscemi's investigating the trash and Kevin James comes in and tells Adam Sandler that their trash isn't gay enough.
Yeah.
And Adam Sandler just he starts, like, piddling around the kitchen going, gay trash, gay trash. It's kind of funny to watch that. And then he grabs 2 lemons and a cucumber and he goes, throws it in
he makes it like a dick shape, and then he's like, meh, and throws that in the trash.
That's my own like offensive adolescent brain. Just kind of chuckled at that. I like after the fight at like the Halloween party.
Yeah, there's a Halloween party where it's like very clearly like an LGBTQ kind of like event sort of thing, and they go. And then they walk outside, and there's protesters there, anti-gay protesters, and they're like yelling with bullhorns and stuff. And then Adam Sandler gets called the F-slur and punches a guy.
Yep.
And everybody starts cheering.
And Jessica Biel's brother goes, "Homos 1, crazy people 0." I love that line.
That part's very funny. The last line that I wrote down that I thought was funny, it's like, the first time that an investigator comes to their house, it's not Steve Buscemi's character, it's another character who comes up. And he's explaining how people have exploited domestic partnerships to get the benefits. And so that's why they do these investigations. And he's like, a lot of people have cheated the system. It actually hurts gay couples when people do that because it delegitimizes their partnerships. And Adam Sandler says, "Oh, that just makes me so sad and gay."
Yeah. There's multiple times where Adam Sandler's punchline is just like saying he's gay.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just like pervasive throughout this whole movie.
Yeah, and there are moments where it hits if like it weren't for all the other stuff.
Yeah.
It like would be kind of funny, at least for 2007.
Yeah, hard to find great lines from this. I guess I go with the phone conversation line, and then Nick Swartzen's line like are kind of laugh out loud moments for me, but it was tough.
Yeah. For me, the scene that aged the worst, there are so many to choose from here.
Yeah, start to finish.
So I picked the one that just felt like it played on the darkest and worst stereotypes.
Yeah.
And to me, that was the drop the soap scene.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
There's a scene in, it's at the firehouse and all the guys are showering. They have like now found out about this domestic partnership. It's been like in the news that Chuck and Larry are a gay couple now.
And there's like mutiny in the fire department. They're like, their former friends are turning against them.
They won't play basketball with them, like stuff like that. And then they're showering, and one of the guys, I think his name's Ricardo in the movie. He like drops his soap, and it's like in slow motion and hits the ground, and nobody will pick it up. And it just plays on this like, the whole movie has this tone. It hypersexualizes gay people. It makes them seem perverse and like disgusting and sex obsessed, and they're not like normal people.
Right.
Nobody in the movie that is portrayed as gay is portrayed as a normal gay person.
No.
And then it just plays into the stereotype of like dropping the soap in like a prison or whatever. The meaning of it is like somebody bends over and then they're taken advantage of. And so they think of them as like not just like 2 homosexual men. They think of them as like aggressive,
deviant predators.
Yeah, like they're sexual predators now all of a sudden. And that to me felt like the ugliest, where I legitimately like looked away from the screen. I was like, ugh. And I understand in 2007 how that would have been in a movie.
Yeah.
But it was like hard to watch that part because I was like, it's just taken to a level where now it's like violent homophobia in my mind.
And there's violent heterosexuality in this that is painted as cool.
Totally.
On like the flip side, it's like, oh, here's the gay version of it. Ooh, scary. And then here's Adam Sandler, who has 15 women locked in his bedroom and is like tying them up and like doing all these insane perverse things. But it's like, that makes him the man.
And they're like mindless sex objects too.
Yeah.
Like they go over to the fridge.
Tila Tequila.
Tila Tequila is in this movie.
She sneaks in.
She's in there.
And Lance Bass. Shout out those cameos.
Yeah, shout out to those cameos. Very 2000s cameos. But like 5 of the girls go over to the fridge looking for, drinks or something. And he is with Larry. And so Chuck turns to Larry and he's like, hey, watch this. He's like, hey, ladies, I think it's a little lower, to get them to like bend down to look. And they like are like giggling and they like don't care. It's just like, it's so ugly.
Yeah, it's awful. And so that's like really the context of the times, is like these 2 terrible versions of heterosexual and homosexuality are present, but one of them is cool and the other one is like scary and violent.
The only other one that I wrote down that is like the most obvious that I've seen people talk about in recent years on the internet is Rob Schneider's portrayal of a Chinese chapel minister.
That's my pick.
Yeah.
By far.
Ugh.
Like, I mean, it's Yeah, it's remarkable that happens in 2007. And I don't really remember 2007 like from a political, atmosphere at the time because I was 13.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really catching the vibe of the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
But it's just astounding to me that like 2007, I was almost in high school and Rob Schneider is on the set, gets the script, and he's like, oh, I'm going to wear like big fake teeth. I'm going to wear glasses and like do like the grossest caricature of like a Chinese person imaginable. It's like,
and I think at the time he thought he could do that because he is of Asian descent.
yeah,
He's like a quarter Filipino
Right.
or half Filipino or something. But it's just like
Schneider, yeah.
But I mean,
know, I know.
you know what I mean though? Like, I mean, I think that's why. But the thing is that Rob Schneider is so deeply unfunny that like it's not some cute little thing. Like this is like it isn't. There's not a funny moment about it.
No, it feels like 40s propaganda, like
Yeah.
internment camp, like type deal. Like it feels crazy.
Because to me, also, like the wedding takes place in Canada. There is no reason that this character has to be Chinese.
Yeah, no.
Like it could be Rob Schneider as
Yeah.
the fucking chapel pastor, and you're good. Like,
There-
I mean,
there
I
are-
wouldn't put Rob Schneider in a movie
Yeah.
if I were trying to make a good movie.
Right.
But like, it didn't have to be that, so
Yeah.
it just feels like this pointless, weird, offensive choice.
Yeah, there are several scenes in this movie that really don't need to be there. That just kind of jogged my memory of there's like a random 4-minute scene where a donut shop has caught on fire and Adam Sandler walks out and says, I found the culprit, an old school doobie. And there's this burnout guy, employee, who's like, oh, hey, man, that's my weed. And then Adam Sandler just sprays him in the face with a fire extinguisher. And then he goes, do it again. He likes it.
He likes it, yeah.
And then he does it again and he falls over and Kevin James and like the fireman cronies are like, ha ha, looks like a powdered donut. And then the scene ends.
Yeah. It is like, I literally turned to you when we
Yeah.
were watching it and I said, why was that in there? Like,
Don't know.
there's no point in that. It's also a 2-hour movie.
I was going to say, this movie runs way too long.
Like, it doesn't need to be
That
this
could
long.
have been cut. Also, like a bigger scene that I wanted to talk about is just being easily one of the worst is like Adam Sandler masquerading as the stereotypical gay best friend for
Yeah.
Jessica Biel because he's like in the bar and she calls him and is like, it's going to be a girls' day. And then he's like, girls' day. And it's like a montage of them like shopping and Adam Sandler, getting to pick out underwear for her. And it all like ends in this rainstorm where they run back to her house and she feels fine, like undressing in front of him. He's like hiding an erection. And then she's like proving to him that her breasts aren't fake by letting him grab them. And then they like sit on the bed together and she asks how he turns Kevin James on. And oddly enough, he says rubbing his earlobes, and then they rub each other's earlobes and like tug on each other's hair.
Yeah, and she's like, how did you get so good at this?
Yeah, and they're sitting there doing it. It's really, really bizarre. It's so tasteless and it's so like fucked up. This era, like early 2000s of like the misogynist pretending to be the gay best friend who like, gets to go over to the sleepover and gets to go on the shopping and like, it's just awful. It's just a sick little daydream that he gets to live out.
Yeah, and also what I don't understand is like, first of all, trying to follow a line in this movie is pointless. Like,
Yeah.
there's no like reason to try to follow a thread
Right.
throughout it. But I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, he's not doing a voice most of the time that he's talking to Jessica Biel. Their way of trying to convince people that they are gay is just talking about having gay sex with
Right.
each other. That's literally their way of convincing, which is another thing. It like paints gay people as one-dimensional, sex-obsessed freaks. But then all of a sudden, sometimes he's doing a voice when he's around Jessica Biel. She thinks you're gay. That's what you're supposed to believe, is that Jessica Biel thinks that Chuck is gay. Why does he sometimes slip into a voice that is like a stereotypical gay voice or a stereotypical way a gay person is supposed to act in the way that the movie paints it?
Yeah.
And then the other times, he's like a rough, gruff New York fireman who talks normally.
Yeah,
It's
use
just
guys.
very, very odd that he somehow switches into this and Jessica Biel doesn't find it odd. In my eyes, I'm like, maybe that's just what Adam Sandler thought was funny for each scene, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's no continuity. Like,
No.
genuinely. I guess the scenes I liked the most are most of the scenes with Steve Buscemi in it, specifically when he's playing basketball with Kevin James' kid. And the first shot is like Kevin James opens the door outside. Steve Buscemi takes a jump shot that is like, and the ball just fires over he's like outside just like tweaking, playing hoops with the kids. That's a really funny scene. Steve Buscemi's brilliant and super hilarious when he's in comedy roles. It sucks that this isn't much of a comedy role, but he really shines when he's given the opportunity, and he doesn't really have many lines or play the role of like perpetuating too many stereotypes. He's just kind of like a finicky like bureaucrat who like is going to get to the bottom of anything and is like convinced that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, he almost like wants nothing to do with whether they're gay or straight. He just wants to figure out on like like a bureaucratic
they're
level.
lying.
Yeah, he's like a detective or something, you know.
Yeah, like a C-level detective.
Yeah,
like
who takes it too seriously. He has a fanny pack.
Yeah.
Like that is almost a punchline in the movie. Is like anytime Steve Buscemi does anything, he reaches down to his fanny pack and like slowly unzips it, and it is very funny on a physical comedy level when he does that.
When they do finally share their bed, which is of course another problematic scene, but Kevin James is reluctant to allow Adam Sandler to sleep in the bed because of his late wife, and that was her side of the bed. Adam Sandler gets into bed and then does like a ghost voice.
But it's not the typical like, oh.
No,
it's like he's like
Larry, you let him sleep in my side of the bed.
I hated that scene.
Oh, it crossed the right line for me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, how did they do that? Like, why? Why was that funny?
Yeah, because he's like he turns over and is like, I will kill you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he's so upset.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I mean, it's one of those things where like Adam Sandler's character is painted as like this bad friend guy who then like turns it around by like in the background he's doing things that are nice.
With
like,
the kids.
Yeah, he's like teaching the kid like how to tap dance and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But the movie very much wants a heartfelt view of both of the main characters by the end, that the movie believes that it has achieved that.
Right.
It's just that it didn't.
Yeah.
In my eyes.
Not
you
even
know?
close.
So my answer is that it wouldn't exist.
Yeah, it absolutely wouldn't exist. I wrote it would be different in every way imaginable. Given the task to try and reinvent or recreate this movie, I came up with something.
Sure, yeah.
I feel like this movie, if it were to be remade today, would be a gay woman and a gay man forced to enter a heterosexual relationship.
Ooh.
And so now the whole joke, if we could just joke about the straight stereotypes, there's something there because that's fair play.
So it's like a gay guy pretending to like love football and steak.
Yeah, he's like,
And
you
beer.
know me, I'm just watching the gay. Ooh, chicken. No, I don't even wipe my ass.
They're worried about like the investigator
Yeah.
trying to figure out, like find out, like, are you gay?
Like, is that a candle in here? like
yeah.
the whole thing is, and like the
Now you're smart and clever, and
Yeah.
I didn't think that before I sat down here today.
This
I'm starting
work-
to like you.
this
the
work-
tide's starting to turn on this guy.
this working
for me.
theory leads perfectly into our next category, and I can't wait to tell you who I have in mind for recast.
Right, because you're recasting a completely different movie.
Right, but it works. We can all admit that would work.
No, it works
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
It totally works.
I like it. I like thinking about it.
Real quick, my answer was I wouldn't want to ruin anyone's career by making them do this movie. So I'd say two legitimate homophobes should be Chuck and Larry.
It's like Mel Gibson
Like the damn and like
and Clint Eastwood.
yeah, it's like, you know, I thought like Ben Shapiro,
Yeah.
like Tom McDonald. I don't know. Let's just like let it be two people that I don't care if their lives are ruined. Because in 2024, if Kevin James and Adam Sandler put this movie out now,
That's it.
the
It's a wrap.
legacy is a
prison.
wrap. Yeah, it's like it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear about yours though, and
No
I
problem.
need to hear a name of this movie.
Okay. So yeah, my ideal recast here is Kristen Stewart and Neil Patrick Harris. And, you know, Kristen Stewart is like a caricature of, you know, a more like masculine lesbian woman who's in like a sturdy relationship. And Neil Patrick Harris is this he's Neil Patrick Harris. He doesn't really have to do anything else.
Right.
And they're forced to somehow enter a heterosexual relationship and portray all those tropes of a straight classic marriage.
Yeah, the only problem I have with your recast here is
Okay.
Neil Patrick Harris, his most famous role
I know.
is of a straight man.
Yeah,
and
but I
he
could-
did it so well and so convincingly.
But this is kind of his like opportunity to champion his own sexuality and overcome that, kind of use the same, I don't know, vibe of that character in How I Met Your Mother, but now he's finally gay. He's finally himself on screen. He doesn't, no more lying, Neil.
Well, he would be. Like, that's the whole thing, is setting up for him to lie.
Yeah.
And also, like, in How I Met Your Mother, his character is like a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, it's one of the worst characters of all time.
But he doesn't play into straight stereotypes in that the same way.
I had a B-class recast. Do you want that?
Oh, I love it, yeah.
Ellen DeGeneres and Jim Parsons.
Yeah, I like that. I was going to say Ellen DeGeneres is old as shit.
We could deep fake her.
I don't like deepfake stuff.
I loved The
I'm
Irishman.
not into it. I'm not into the AI.
It was my B-class. It's not great yet. I'm going to have people read for it, but...
I'm not sure we've made enough strides in gay eye to get that to work. The deepfake. Gay eye.
Yeah, I
Is
got
that
it.
Fine?
Yeah.
Is that allowed?
Gay eye for the straight guy.
Ooh, I like this.
You
I
like
like where
it,
you're
don't
headed.
you?
Yeah. Honestly, that's a good thing. We should ask the audience.
Who would you recast in a like flipped on its head version of a I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry, where two gay people have to enter a heterosexual relationship? Who's your recast? Leave it down below in the comments.
Please
please,
do.
please.
I wrote that music doesn't matter in this movie.
Yeah, and it's really just kind of like what you'd expect. It's like not a really standout soundtrack in any
No.
way. At the LGBTQ Halloween party, there's like what you would think in 2007 or even still now, like to be like some like gay anthems, you know? Ving Rhames sings I'm Every Woman in the shower.
Yeah. I'm every woman.
Which is a banger of a track.
It's
and
a
I-
great song, but the way that he starts doing that, it's just an awkward scene.
Yeah.
The way that they paint gay people is just so unnatural in this
Right.
movie. Is just so like, ugh.
We get under pressure at the court scene when they're entering court for the last time. Oddly enough, second movie in a row with under pressure.
Yeah, Step Brothers had Under Pressure in it as well, which is,
I feel like David Bowie maybe licensed all his shit and just like was raking it in at this point.
it would be Queen doing that licensing though.
Oh, true. Yeah.
It's a Queen song.
Didn't David Bowie's featured on that?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
But usually the feature, okay.
But he was alive and Freddie Mercury was dead, so maybe he like possessed the rights or something.
True, but the Queen lived until like 2 years ago. High and Dry by Radiohead is playing in the scene where Adam Sandler and Jessica Biel have their like kiss. They have a kiss
So
moment.
fucking
which is
weird.
So
Yeah.
stupid, but
Super weird. And then obviously Girls Just Want to Have Fun is in this
yeah,
because gay men are women, I guess.
yeah. That's like it's very
It's strange.
it's strange.
So pretty bad soundtrack.
Yeah, it didn't matter.
Let's start giving like a rating for these we'll go out of 60.
That's a bad rating system, right?
We're
there,
going to
I'll
go
tell you.
out of 60 and I'm going to give it an 8.
Yeah, I'll give it a 13.
Yeah.
No. Before I get into my letterboxd review, I just want to mention a few things that stood out to me in this movie.
Please.
This movie starts out with Chuck daring his girlfriend and her twin sister to make out as they fight over him,
Yeah.
and says use tongue to like prove that they're freaks. He says that like, oh, you guys aren't real freaky. Like, ugh.
And they just agree. They're like, okay, Chucky.
Yeah, they like will do it, and it's just an insane start. And then he says, be right back. I gotta go save the city first.
Yep.
As he gets on a fire truck to go put out a fire.
Yeah.
The thing that is the hardest for me to stomach about this movie is that all of the truly gay characters have no arc, no dimension,
No, yeah.
no humanizing moment. Any humanizing moment that it tries to fake is kind of some sort of like characterized expression of gay people from honestly like homophobes' perspective.
Yeah.
It's like a really flamboyant moment that is supposed to be liberating, but there's no dimension past that. They don't feel like characters with real lives outside of being gay.
And then like the final court scene, like when Dan Aykroyd. I can't believe we're just now bringing him up.
Yeah, he's
comedy legend.
He's the fire chief.
He comes in at the end of the court case, and like maybe here we have the opportunity for like all the hateful characters in the movie to like stand up and be like, you know what? It's okay. I've like, you know, kind of learned this lesson. But Dan Aykroyd comes in and is like, I know they're not gay, but they're good guys. The whole movie climaxes on that, and there's this little opportunity where everybody's like, you know what? It doesn't matter what your sexuality is. And he's like, no, I'm going to save their character right now by letting everyone know they're not actually gay. Yeah. They're just good friends and firemen. Yeah. They're not gay. It's like holy shit.
All of the homophobia in this movie leads up to this moment where Chuck and Larry are celebrated as gay icons.
Yes.
For faking a gay marriage for money. And then Chuck turns around and says, you know what? Don't say the F slur, but says it.
Yeah.
Like, he not only says it for 2 hours, but then says it in that moment. Says, don't say that. It's like saying a slur for Jewish people that he also says, like, about me. And then Kevin James says, or fat boy for me.
And he goes, yeah, it hurts when you say that.
Yeah, it hurts when you say, like, stuff about my weight. And I'm not like, delegitimizing any of those things as hurtful language. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't have a good, clear message because they get out just completely unscathed.
Yeah, scot-free.
They're celebrated. They're heroes. Then they sell the fireman calendar
as a fundraiser for AIDS research,
which has its own whole host of problems.
Right.
As that is like the arc that is supposed to be redeeming, obviously with context of the last 15 years.
Yeah.
It's not a good, like, wrap-up moment for this movie.
And they really thought they did. And that's, like, the biggest failure here is, like, they maybe had an opportunity not to redeem the whole movie, but at least end on a note where you're like, oh, that's not that awful. And then they just like triple down, and you're like, oh, they thought they were doing, they thought that was right.
Yeah. Which leads to my letterboxd review, which I will put on the screen. This movie does more to humanize homophobes than it does gay people.
How many stars?
Half.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do, a half. I've never tried to enter a no-star review, and I will try. And if it works, I will be happy for that.
Right.
My review then will be no stars. Now, if I have to give it a half star, my review will be, I'm sorry, I had to watch this for a YouTube video.
When watching this movie, one thing I was really curious about, because the context has changed so much about these conversations, how was this movie received when it came out? And it turns out poorly. Like, obviously, the Rotten Tomatoes critic score shows that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see what people were saying about it.
Of course.
So I just screenshotted 5 reviews from Rotten Tomatoes that I liked. First, we have this one from a top critic named Alonzo Duraldi. While it's very easy to eviscerate Chuck and Larry from an activist point of view, all one really has to do to slam the flick is to look at the lazy, contrived writing and the traffic cop direction by frequent Sandler accomplice, Dennis Dugan.
He's a criminal.
I love calling him an accomplice.
Yeah.
Then we have from Brandon Phibbs of the Colorado Springs Gazette.
Serious stuff here.
You know a movie is going to be bad when Rob Schneider shows up as a Chinese wedding chapel minister.
Yeah.
No, come to think of it, you know a movie is going to be bad when Rob Schneider shows up at all.
Nice, yeah. Kind of one of the horsemen of the apocalypse.
Then we have Sean Burns from the Philadelphia Weekly saying, the movie is trying to tell you that gays are people too. Sure, they're icky, embarrassing people, but you should still be nice to them. That is a good summation of everything I talked about with the betrayal of gay people in this movie. Then Jeffrey Westhoff from
what a picture.
Northwest Herald. Yeah, this weird drawing of him. Crystal Lake, Illinois, stand up. Many, many things are wrong with Chuck and Larry, but its ultimate failure lies in the ludicrous explanation used to get its stars to the altar.
Yeah, so true, because why? Why do they need to get married?
Yeah, why is the pension and beneficiary thing, like, dependent on entering a domestic partnership?
Yeah, I don't get it.
I mean, I don't understand most paperwork, but I don't see how this makes sense. I feel like the movie would have been better if it was actually pointing out some flaw in the system that existed. But there's really no flaw there. It's like they just had to figure out how to make this movie.
And let's be honest, how big is a fireman's pension? $100? $200? I mean, we don't pay them nothing.
Brian Webster from the Apollo Guide says, you don't even need to find this movie offensive to hate it. You just need to stay awake long enough to notice that it's not funny.
Which is about 2 minutes. 2-3 minutes in, you're like, oh, this is gonna suck.
Yeah, it shows its cards right off the bat.
Still a 39 out of 100 seems a little high.
Right, I thought that too. That is a good score for what you said.
Yeah. Maybe it's this like the scenes, the set design.
Yeah, it's probably the set design and the
costume,
budget.
yeah.
Maybe the Lance Bass cameo did it for you.
Fuck yeah, kind of did it for me too.
Yeah, I was like, oh, is that Lance Bass? He doesn't do anything.
God, he's awesome.
He's just singing at the end a little bit. But
great.
That about wraps it up on I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry. If you've seen this movie, let us know what you thought about it. If you are part of our Patreon, we are posting before we put these videos out, letting you know what movie we're going to be talking about next. So join our Patreon and comment on those. Let us know what you'd like us to watch next. Also, if you just want to be up on it so that you can watch this movie with the context of having seen it or having seen it recently, then check out our Patreon. It's only $5 a month. We really appreciate the support.
We've created our bookends. We did Step Brothers, which aged really well. It was a pretty good movie. And we've done one of the worst movies ever created by mankind.
Yes.
And there will be good movies along the way, there will be bad movies along the way, and there will be mediocre movies along the way. We are not going to seek out intentionally problematic movies, and we're not going to just watch movies we know to be classics. So it'll be a wide range.
And I will leave you guys with one last thing, which is right when this movie ended, Graydon turned to me and said, God, I hope that's the worst one we have to watch.
I really do.
For this series. So... with that, thanks for watching. I'm Not Unlimited. Thanks for watching the second episode of How Did It Age? And we'll see you in the next one.
Goodbye.